love doing covers in categories, and every year I hope you enjoy it. It was a huge night out, and in my drunken stupor, I actually hit my groin on one of those chunky bollards. But as it turned out, it actually wasn't a bollard at all. I was sexually assaulted by Brad Giroux. I know it might sound strange to say it, but if I had the choice between keeping Cameron Smith or Augusto Pinochet in power, I'd still lean with Pinochet. The trio would have to be Craig Gower, Jason Moody, and Sam Obst. Because I just can't see another three players fitting in musically with Craig McCallum and Check 1 2. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Voluntary Tackle, the only NRL podcast that thinks that anyone who marks up against Joey Lalua should be armed with a handgun. Because he's a big unit and it probably only rubber bullets, nothing serious, because you don't want to kill anyone. But this is a very special episode, not just because we're approaching grand final week, because this podcast has managed to attract some people to it, which is very unusual, and not just by any guest, mind you. I'm joined by someone who has his own podcast. Of course, I refer to the biggest tiger from Sports Best Friends. Welcome, mate.
Hello, thank you. I'm overwhelmed that those things that you do at the top are off the top of your head.
Well, because if I put it down on paper, I could only ruin it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm already learning.
Yeah, that's right. I'm also joined by one half of a fabulous duo. No, not Mork and Mindy. I'm referring, of course, to Shirley from Shirley and Laverne fame. Or it should be Laverne and Shirley, but you are more of a Shirley and Laverne at this stage.
True. Laverne couldn't be here, but we're thinking of her and sending out the love.
Should we invite her back on the podcast, seeing as she hasn't shown the commitment not to show up today?
To be fair, you didn't invite Laverne to this episode.
Details. These are just details. But of course, I will try not to be too self-congratulatory because I am obviously a Roosters fan. Let me just put that laptop away. I feel a speech coming on. Okay. But no, I'm obviously very excited that the Roosters in the NRL Grand Final. And Big T, I hear you've turned up today to take me down a few pegs. You're getting a bit of social media love. I don't know if these are just rumours at this stage, but fair bit of love for Canberra, I hear.
Yeah, look, me getting social media love is lovely in itself, and I feel like I often just there was a phrase for it where you
it's just the norm for you, isn't it?
No. There's a thing. It is. Yes, thank you. But there's a thing where you something signalling.
A virtue signalling.
Virtue signalling.
Oh, of course.
And so I feel like my whole entire Twitter account is done on that. And rugby league virtue signalling. So I've asked people why, you might want Canberra to win more than the Roosters. And, I had to charge my phone a bunch of times. I got that many notifications. But both narratives are excellent. And I just felt like if I came on here, you're obviously a Roosters fan, that I should try and take up a arguing for arguing's sake. Okay,
I like that. So you're taking the other side, not because you hate my guts,
no,
but because you want to be objective on the show.
Yeah, I've been to your bathroom. Your guts seem great, so I don't hate them at all.
Is this time for a very random segue? It probably is. Listeners, this probably is a little bit too invasive.
Are you going to do one of the adverts off the top of your head?
No.
That would have blown my brain. Okay.
No. Well, we can try it. But Big T has just come around to our studio, and he didn't know this, but our cat knows how to use the toilet, which I don't think's maybe very common. But of course, when you have an exceptionally gifted cat, you just think it's the norm. And my wife, Shirley, was trying to stop you from using it because in her mind, that's the cat's toilet. Yeah. And she thought you might feel weird about sitting on the same toilet. If you were sitting, no judgment at all. Yeah. When that's the cat, that's his toilet. But I'm interested to know, is that something you felt weird about?
Well, I didn't know before I went, but I would have asked Chester more about it before I'd gone in if I'd known it was his bathroom.
That's respectful.
Yeah, if he's a half flush or if he likes a full flush because he doesn't want to go in knowing that it's only been half flushed or, and now I can't blame any of the pee on the floor on someone else. It's Chester's.
Much bigger chance that was me, actually. Chester's quite respectful.
Do you use Chester's bathroom?
Obviously, Shirley is a woman and is in the bathroom a bit longer than I am. Generally speaking, it's not an affront, is it?
You guys on the same cycle for urinating though? Surely she can use the bathroom without it needing.
That's true.
To affect you.
You're right. I think it's more
Your Honour and my
To be fair, I think that if I even signal that there is a chance I might need the bathroom, then he just out of the great chivalry uses the other bathroom to give me preference.
I just want to give you a space, a wide berth to do whatever you need to do. Well, I'm talking makeup and stuff,
Okay.
or whatever it is.
What about Chester, though? Do you think about his getting ready needs?
Can I tell you a weird story? There has been moments of awkwardness in this house where I've flicked the light on in the second bathroom and Chester's using it.
Yeah.
And invariably he's facing the wall and he will turn around and look at me really awkwardly, like sheepishly. And I will go, oh, sorry, mate. And I'll flick the light off and I'll back out of the room.
But you say that out loud. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, I do.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
talk to him. He knows what I'm saying. I'm not strange. So anyway, you wandered into that little death trap. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I enjoyed it.
Just part of the experience here at the voluntary tackle. But it is a grand final themed show, and I'm very much looking forward to talking about how the Roosters will celebrate their impending victory. Of course, it will be one. I've never felt so confident going into a grand final.
Wow.
And I don't know if this is just obscene arrogance or it's because I felt like the grand final's already happened. Another thing that listeners may not know is...
You're a time traveler? What do you mean you feel like it's already been done?
That's just part of my little foregone conclusion attitude, which I know you're going to rebuff me on, which is fair enough. But you're obviously a fan of the Melbourne Storm, Shirley.
I
Can you
am.
describe to the listeners what it was like when we watched that on the couch together?
I've been thinking about this actually all week, and my friends have been messaging me asking if we're still in the same house. And unfortunately, I did have a migraine on Saturday, but that was maybe the best thing that happened to me all week because I was so focused on the fact that I felt like absolute crap that I didn't really care so much that we lost. And then the deal that we had was whoever wins, like, waits on the other person hand and foot the next day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we hedged it.
So, got over the migraine, had Aimon do everything for me on Sunday, and now it's not so bad. And I actually, you know what, like losing to you guys in the preliminary and seeing you win gave me some joy. If I had to like play the Raiders and lose in the grand final, I don't think I could do that 2 years in a row. Like 2 grand final losses in a row might have been the end of me.
Is there a chance that when you had that migraine, that was your body's kind of self-defense mechanism, like knowing that a loss was coming?
You guys are time travelers. You already knew. You didn't realise you were a time traveler. You already knew you were going to lose and you didn't want to watch it.
Maybe. But I did watch it. I actually did. And I was frustrated for most of the game.
It was a tense match.
How do you feel about Cooper Cronk moving to the Roosters?
I mean, we'll get Tedesco next year, so it's fine.
Oh,
I hope that doesn't happen.
you have enough fullbacks. Why would you, out of everyone in the league?
joking.
I know, but
Yeah,
that would be incredible. That would be the best thing, actually. I kind of want that to happen because you and I were saying before, you asked me how I felt about Tedesco, and I said, I'm happy to see him thriving, and he could only do that in 2 clubs, and it's those 2 clubs. So if he moved, that would destroy the Roosters because you're always, doing that to everybody else.
That's right. That's our thing. You can't do that.
Yeah.
We might need a hooker next year, though.
He could do that. Tedesco could do
Yeah,
that.
that's true. Tedesco can do anything.
I think he could.
Well, Krakenhausen? No. Pappenhausen.
No, Pappenhausen. I have a big fat crush on him.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm in the room here.
Yeah. Krushenhausen.
Sorry, hang on. Who came home Googling what's her face's girlfriend the other day? It's like, babe, look,
I can't even remember that. What was that?
she was in a green dress. It was at the deli.
Oh, I think it was Mitchell Moses misses. That's
Yeah.
a tough thing to say. Mitchell Moses misses.
Yeah.
Mitchell
Peter
Moses.
Pecker Pickle Pipers, I believe. But she was good looking.
Mrs. Mitchell Moses misses most goals. That's an interesting. Was she? When you saw her, did you? I mean, most of the time, girls are going to look at hair and dress. How did you feel about the hair and dress?
Oh, this is going to sound really bad.
I asked. Go. It's on me now. It's on me. I
I
enabled
feel like
you.
maybe where Aimon had the picture zoomed, the first thing that I saw was the tits.
Well,
Wow, okay.
Wow.
Well, it's good to know you guys are leering at that too. It's not just
no,
us.
she
It's
was leering at
really-
your psychology. No.
It
So
was
that's how
really
naive
bad.
I am.
She was a very attractive woman, and she
Okay.
had a very nice green dress. I don't actually remember her hair, but I also remember her makeup being good.
Okay.
It's funny the different things you take notice of, isn't it? I just looked at it and thought, God, Mitchell Moses, what a cockhead. That's the first thing I thought. I got drawn there and I just went, I know you had a big year, but I still don't like you.
He's a good-looking guy, though, right?
Yeah, no.
No. Okay.
I'm one of those weird
that was
people-
shut down quick.
I'm happy to take that.
I'm one of those weirdos that as soon as I know that a guy's a dick,
Yeah.
he looks like a dick
I think
as well.
that's not. I think that's normal. I think that should. Well, if it isn't, it should be.
It should be normal.
Yeah.
It really should.
But there must be a number. I mean, because dickheads seem to pick up, so there must be at least an element of women out there who think, "Oh, I'm going to put the fact that he's an arsewipe to one side, and date him instead."
I'm also worried that it means that if you and I aren't dicks, that we're not attractive as well, because we know. Yeah, this is. Let's leave this train of thought.
But look, we won't peel back the curtain into our private lives too much, because I know that our listeners are hungry, are ravenous for some grand final content when they've really come to the wrong place, because I haven't really put too much in place for this apart from just a thorough episode of gloating. But outside of that, I think we do need to do a little bit of analysis on the Canberra Raiders and the Roosters coming up. And I think something that occurs to me, I was on the way home and I heard that there's been an outbreak of SARS in the Canberra camp. That's, I think, 2 players and counting who have supposedly suffering viruses. And I'm here to tell you, I think that's a furphy. I think this is a weird Ricky Stewart tactic to say, oh, well, no one thinks we can win, and now we've been struck down with genital herpes and we're definitely not going to win, and trying to lull us into some weird victory space, which, as a fan, I'm already in.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that this is potentially a big conspiracy?
I don't think so. And I do have to be honest, I think you need to tone down the "we're going to win." Because I don't want to be around next week if you lose.
Hold on. What's your hashtag, though? East to win.
East to win, yeah, that's right.
They've done it for like 8 months, so they're all in that mindset.
Yeah, but like the come down's going to be so hard.
I hope it's, well, you're right, it will be if that is indeed the case.
We can't paint another building in the east.
Yeah, you know what I'll do? I'll turn up to that mural in Bondi Junction with a giant bloody white paintbrush.
How dare you say
and just erase history.
No.
'Cause that is the extent of my disappointment.
No. Also, Arthur Beat's an excellent Balmain tiger for anyone who cares. Painted on the mural. I think the furphy, first of all, excellent word. I'm so glad that you used that. It is
Thank
a
you.
furphy. I think it's a very Queensland kind of vibe when they do that. When they try and say that things are the sick, but they're not really. I love calling Canberra the clap. So the whole genital
Great
sickness.
brand marriage
Yeah,
there, isn't
well
it,
done.
between the podcasts?
But I think the Josh Hodgson being sick just makes me immediately think that why is he the captain with Jared is it Jared Kroger? Yes.
Yeah, they're co-captains.
Jared Kroger was the captain for a long time, and I feel like it was very game of clap of them to put another captain in.
I have a theory on that.
Yeah.
I think it's because Kroger's shit.
I was going to say, I'm glad you went there.
I was going to ask if that's the guy with the helmet that you bag on every week.
See, what it is about him, right? I mean, I'm not going to go into some diatribe, so I'll keep it limited. But I think with him, it's like they love him down there. Right. He's an icon, as much as the Canberra Mint is an icon down there, and probably just as effective at defending his own goal line. So it's the fact that the crowd love him. There's an element of respect, but they do know deep down he's not that great. So I think their hedge is to give him the co-captaincy. So maybe they're just being diplomatic about this.
That would make sense. Because I would imagine it's a fan revolt if he was the captaincy was taken off him for an English person. Just quickly, I love Canberra as a place. Have you been to the Mint?
Are you joking?
I'm not joking.
I've never been to the Mint. I make a lot of jokes about the Mint and the War Memorial. All I remember, I've been to Canberra many times. I shouldn't say many. 9, I'm guessing.
That's many.
That seems like many. I'd say several. I've been there several times.
That's 7. Let's go with many. Have you been more than...
I grew up quite close to Canberra.
You've been many.
I've been
Actually many.
I've been too many.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there is such a thing with Canberra.
Yeah, okay.
And my overriding sense in Canberra is, wow, there's a lot of roundabouts here, and isn't it exceptionally flat? And they're the two things that strike me.
You're wrong there.
Okay.
It's not flat. I've been mountain biking there and I felt every single one of those hills.
Really?
It's not flat.
Is this the city centre? It seems quite flat.
No, it's surrounded by hills.
Right, surrounded. So
But
you've
then-
been riding in the outcrops.
No, but it's like it's not that like we were staying in the city ish. And then we were riding from
And
there.
you
But
rode
it's
off into
not-
the hills.
It is not flat.
Right.
It hurts.
Like a really shitty sound of music. That's what
Kind
it
of.
sounds like.
Well, it's pretty shit.
I'm judging you severely on going somewhere and mountain biking because that's surely not a pastime. That's something people do.
It was school camp.
Oofed. And they made you do it as well. It's even worse.
No, I
It's
volunteered.
enforced.
However, do you know, this is actually a good story. It makes me sound like I'm actually a sports person. I was playing touch football about 3 days before we left, went to score a try, and fell over the line as I was getting tackled, tore a ligament in my ankle, and
Whoa.
then went on the camp.
Wow.
And when the kids were complaining to me about having sore legs, I took my sock off and I had like this swollen black ankle, and they stopped complaining.
So anyone out there who thinks Cooper Cronk is hard, you got nothing.
You didn't ride a bike in front of people.
Wait until you go mountain biking with a sprained ankle.
It wasn't sprained, thank you. It was much more serious than that.
And I know it's a rugby league podcast,
Yes.
but you called them a roundabouts, not roundabouts. And that is so adorable that I needed to bring it up.
That could be to do with the fact that I haven't had dinner and a few beers, but it's definitely not in my base vernacular. Let's put it that way. Okay. I don't go, let's go and have a ride around those roundabouts.
That was adorable.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I say it again in the future.
He also says nuclear.
Oh, this is not a pick on Aimon extravaganza, all right?
Yeah.
And there's something else.
Isn't it?
I said
kind of feel
Vietnamese
like-
at one point instead of Vietnamese.
You
That used to
also
annoy
say
me.
throff instead of...
This will all be edited.
Damn it.
Now, the listeners obviously are completely unaware of the concept of time because it's a podcast and we could have recorded this at any time. But
Should
I'm
have,
just
in fact.
planting a flag right now that we're going to be speaking, and I should have said this at the top of the show, but because I'm so disorganised, I haven't done it. We're going to be speaking to Greg McCallum, former first grade NRL referee Greg McCallum, in the lead up to this grand final.
Friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod, that's right. He's been on. It was a really good chat we had before. And Big T, obviously, you have a bit of a similar circle here, don't you?
Well, in that I'm a referee, yep.
Yeah.
And in that I'm on the voluntary tackle. They're probably the only two things he and I have in common. His name sounds insanely like he's a New Zealander. And I looked it up. He's not.
He's not.
No,
Yeah.
he's from Manly. But I just felt like...
Surely has New
he
Zealand
should be.
heritage.
Yeah, he should be. Or at least his family somewhere should
Yeah.
be. I might tell him that he needs to repatriate.
Well, I think maybe we should open with that when we
Yes.
chat with him. So this is happening in real time before we chat with him. Maybe our first question should be, can you please emigrate to New Zealand?
Yeah. Or at least just tell people you are. Just lie to people about where you're from.
Come out of the cultural closet. Will you, Greg? Anyway, so that should be good. And Shirley, I want to get your insights here because we haven't consulted you at all. But what should we be asking Greg before we chat with him?
I was really interested to know how they pick the referees for the grand final because I saw it was on the news the other day and they were handing out the jerseys like it was something special.
Oofed.
There you go. That'd be a good.
But it
That's a great
wasn't.
question.
Is that what you-
But how do they choose? And did the girl get it?
I think it's spin the bottle, isn't it, T?
No, unfortunately. That would be a great way. There'd be a lot more people to refereeing. They'd be weirder, but there'd be more of them.
That's why Greg McCallum had so much pash rash.
Yeah, that's why I grew the beard to try to keep him off him.
That's it.
No, Belinda Sharp, the one from New Zealand, Queensland, she didn't get selected. She was in the prelim. She may have been in your one, actually, the Melbourne one.
She was.
But she wasn't selected to this one. And Casey Badger, I think, is refereeing the female one, the WNRL game.
So is that considered like a step
Let me check Big
down?
League, guys.
Oh, look, let's do some live research.
Yeah.
Sorry, please
that what?
proceed.
It's one of those weird things. Like, are you a bit bummed if you get to referee the women's game? Because I think that would actually be an honour because it's the first time it's happening, right?
Oh,
Like
absolutely. Yeah.
The first time the women's grand final's happening?
on the same day as the...
As a curtain raiser.
Oh, right. It's definitely the first time a female referee has refereed any grand final, first grade grand final. I did check Big League. She's definitely the head referee.
She's the head.
Head referee, yeah.
Ooh.
Can I don't want to interrupt your flow, T, because I feel like you're about to say something really insightful.
I'm really glad you got there for me.
But I just want, again, because it's a non-visual medium, I want the listeners to know this. Big T has turned up not just with what looks to be a mini iPad, but the old-fashioned
Doesn't just look to be,
magazines.
it is a mini iPad.
Yeah,
and it
you've
is
brought
Big League.
paper to the table. I mean, I feel thoroughly organised today.
I really should be paid by Big League. The amount of times I talk about it and refer to it is ludicrous. However, I only did it because... No, there's two reasons I did it. One of them was I saw Michael Ennis on Fox Sports, and they were all sitting at tables, and they've always got heaps of paper. And I'm always like, what do you have there that's telling you? You're never looking at it, so what are you really doing with those pieces of paper? And they shuffle them and move them around. But he had a magazine out, and so did Ben Eichen in the same week. And I was like, that's got to be for a reason. They have it for a reason. And then I went to a box, and they were giving them out for free, so I took one. And have just been able to not ever talk about rugby league without them now. And it comes in handy so much. It's like having Wikipedia but faster, and I feel like I've given back to a charity, which is News Corp.
Which is the rugby league.
Do you have a subscription?
I don't yet. I've only started this year.
Called him out live on air.
Yeah, but is it better for the news cycle? I guess they have guaranteed cash that way. I just like the idea that they print them in hope that someone will buy it, and someone does.
Think of the trees. What would Greta Thunberg think of this?
Oh, shit.
But at the same time, it is something very nice having something tactile to read, because you can't do that with a Kindle. Imagine trying to read Big League on an Amazon Kindle. It wouldn't be the same thing.
No.
It just would feel shit.
No. And also, someone said, why don't you just look it up online? And I could definitely, but I just often feel like I don't look it up. You know what I mean? Someone's like, what that person name? I don't know. And then, when I have it here, I'm like, oh shit, I bought it. I may as well check. Yeah. What was our original question? Though?
Oh, look, I think you were getting somewhere when yeah, that's right. It was about the referees. You were looking at the refs.
Choose? How do they choose?
I can answer that, but I'd rather him do it. I think you should ask him that. There is also another.
I ask him questions all day. It's nice to get some answers from
I think T's saying ask Greg McCallum.
Yeah.
Oh, I should ask Greg.
The Kiwi we're just about to get on.
Yeah. We're about to call him in 5 minutes.
I was going to say, because asking him questions, I don't know if you know, you do. Actually, if you know this, then you are like a time traveler. Because for the last week, I've gone to bed to the sound of Aimon asking me trivia about the NRL.
Can we do that?
So laying in bed and
that
Aimon,
you're making up, or that you're reading?
He makes it up in his head.
Oh, unfortunately, you've said that live, haven't you? There's no way of retracting that.
That's excellent.
Well, I think it's excellent foreplay. That's where I like to start with NRL trivia, and then of course
really gets the balls rolling.
Yeah. Once we hit finals.
Hello.
Greg, it's Aimon here from the Voluntary Tackle, mate. How you going?
Good, mate. How are you going?
Very well, mate. Thanks so much for sparing some time to join the show today. I know it's obviously it's a big week. It's very nice to have you on.
Yeah, we had our big pro-am at Springwood. Golf club today, so I'm up there now.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope we're not tearing you away from the bar.
No, I'm not. Away having the weekend off, so I'm on my way down the south coast.
Beautiful, Greg. Well, look, we won't keep you too long, mate.
Okay, no worries.
I'm joined here by my panellists, Big T and Shirley. So we're here just to ask you a couple of questions, mate. Obviously, it just occurred to us, actually, we do a fair bit of research on the show, and we realised that the last time the Canberra Raiders were in the grand final, you were reffing.
I was.
How do you feel about that kind of symmetry? Does it feel like a long time ago now?
Well, it does. Well, it's 25 years, so it is a long time. So, but I remember it like it was yesterday because that was my last game.
What a way to go out.
Yeah, but the other significant thing was that 92-93 was the Brisbane side that went back-to-back. So this is, the first opportunity that the sides had to go back-to-back since then too. So,
mate, it occurs to me, Greg, that I guess, you've been in there in the centre stage. When you're watching a grand final at home, having been in the middle, do you ever find yourself dressing up in the ref's gear and donning the old, the whistle, the TNT shirt, even the beard maybe?
Well, do you know what? A few weeks ago, I went to an 80s night and I went as myself.
Yes. That's awesome.
With the TNT jersey on.
That's amazing. So you still have it in the wardrobe?
We had some ones made. The Referees Association had some replicas made because the one that I wore in 1994 doesn't quite fit me now. It's shrunk.
I'm sure it's the shirt's fault, Greg. There's no doubt about that. The grand final, mate, obviously there's been a lot of talk this year in the NRL, and you're a great person to speak to about this, about the reffing in particular. Have you got any thoughts on how a grand final should be reffed? Do you think a grand final should be reffed any differently from a regulation club match?
Well, everyone will tell you it's different because when judiciary matters come up, they say players shouldn't miss grand finals. They're different to other games. It is a different game. What you're hoping for, it's a bit like Origin, where you hope that that the players go out there and all they're concentrated on is minimising penalties and basically trying to keep on the right side of the referee. And if I was a coach, that'd be the last message I'd be telling players to go out there. So as a referee, I think you've got to go out on the field with that in mind, that the players are going to give you, probably a better concentrated effort in trying not to give away penalties. And look, penalties, the game swings on penalties.
Mate, it's Big T here. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Listen, you're just talking then about how teams are trying to stay out. The games are kind of different. The penalties are so challenging in those finals games, and yet the last that Roosters and Melbourne game, there was a sin bin immediately. So how is it, looking at the refereeing perspective, how does that kind of change how that game works for you when you penalise and sin bin two players in the first play the ball?
To have the situation where, by interpretation now and by direction that you have to sin bin players for those sorts of things would have affected him. I think, he would have gone out there hoping to get through the first 5-10 minutes without, probably blowing a penalty and getting the sides to start playing footy. But, to put two blokes in the bin at the start would have been, quite a daunting thing for them. My personal opinion is he had to do it because that's the interpretation.
Yeah.
Do I think they should have been sin bin? No, I don't. I think there are too many things now, players being sin bin for things that in the past the referee handled on the field.
Yeah, right.
I just think that we're loading up the referees with too many options to penalise and to put players in the bin, and that's why I'm sort of leading the debate about the 5 minutes. I think the 5 minutes sin bin has to come back into the game because I think the way the game's regulated now, that 10 minutes is far too harsh.
And do you think?
For some things.
And do you think that loading up you're talking about is also why there seems to be so many more officials? We've got two referees on there. You've got a match official on the top. You've got the bunker. You've got their a lot of them. They're all mic'd up. They're all talking to each other.
Yeah, I think there is that. I think the game is over-regulated, and I think that we've got to get back to a set of rules that everybody understands, everybody accepts. I think there are too many interpretations being made all the time, season to season. That is very frustrating.
Hi, Greg. It's Shirley here. I'm definitely the rookie of the crew here tonight. So I've got a few questions. Just about with the big games. Obviously, it's really important that we have the right refs on the field. How does that process work? So coming up to this weekend, how do you get chosen for either the Women's League or the main NRL, event?
Yeah, it's very competitive. It was really competitive back in my time. You have a group of referees that are experienced. I was refereeing in an era with Graham Annesley, Bill Harrigan, Tim Mander was there, and Stephen Clark. It was a really tough week in, week out battle to get the top positions. And when it gets to the semi-finals and grand finals, you've just got to make sure that you continue to perform well and not come up with the big error, the big mistake, because to lose your place is a very disappointing thing at that time of the year. Ashley Klein is an example. Ashley Klein would have gone into the semi-final series as either number one or number two, but the failure to sin bin the players in the Canberra Raiders and Melbourne Storm game, that cost him, and he went from being a real opportunity to go back-to-back in grand finals to basically out the door. And that opened the door, in my opinion, to Ben Cummings, who really took the position and has run with it.
So do you think it's more demoralising to be dropped as a ref or as a player?
As a ref is really demoralising. Players have all their mates around them, and Will Chambers is a good example. Will Chambers was dropped towards the end of the season. And basically, to be dropped at that stage meant that he was on the outer, really, and his future at the club straight away was talked about. But he had his mates around him. Referees, it's often been said, don't have too many mates.
Yeah, it's a lonely job
You
sometimes.
basically got to deal with the disappointment yourself, and that can be really difficult. It falls on your family to give you support rather than your teammates.
I'm gonna it's Big T again. I'm gonna shift us back to happier times. The talking about the old days, I was looking at some statistics, and you started in '83, and the first 10 or so games, you've got about 2,000 people at each game, as was the style at the time. But then in '84, June 24th, you got South and St George, and there are 15,000 people there. So that's an insane increase in the amount of people you're normally in front of. And then 50. Do you remember that game? Do you remember that really being different?
I do. That was my first second TV game. I think it was my first Sunday TV game, and it was different. You're quite right. The first game I did was at Lidcombe Oval, was Cronulla versus West, and there were just over 2,000 people there.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a rugby league game now with only 2,000 people? You know, people comment about the crowd sizes.
They call them Titans matches, I think.
Yeah. No, I went to the at Leichhardt Oval, at the NRLW, the St George played the Roosters, and there was a bit over 2,000 people, and I thoroughly enjoyed it because there was space for me. But you're right, week to week, day to day, that's inconceivable at the moment.
Yeah, and the great memory of that particular game was the Terry Lamb. That was my very first game in first grade. Terry Lamb was playing for West.
Yeah, wow.
Went to Canterbury the next year, and Terry Lamb played in my very last game.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
94, so it is. It's remarkable.
The
He was
bookends.
captain of the Bulldogs in that grand final in 94. So, and again, the game is made up of all of those statistics, and it's amazing how they align sometimes. And
Yeah, wow.
I've got a big league program of my first game with Terry Lamb in it, and then a big league program my last game, and Terry Lamb was in that as well.
Wow, that's incredible.
Greg, I just wanted to, I know the last time we spoke, you talked about when you were reffing, not over-regulating the match, and you used to talk about candidates you knew might cause you trouble. For example, Mark Geyer comes to mind. I think you said, you'd keep an eye on him, or you'd keep an eye on Ben Elias in the scrum, for example.
Yep.
If you were reffing today and doing the 2019 grand final, which candidates would you think you'd have to keep a particular eye on?
Well, in those days, keeping an eye on them meant basically saving them from themselves in terms of probably getting into incidents that may lead to being sin binned or sent off. And also in that era, there was a fair amount of aggression, and players did take things into their own hands without fear, because if it was serious, you'd be sent off. But most likely the referee would deal with it on the field, as I mentioned early on. I think in the sort of game that we've got coming up on the weekend, you've got to look after, in terms of the rules, players that are going to have a significant impact on the game. Cooper Cronks, for example, you've got to ensure that he doesn't get knocked over late or get hit. Off the
I'd
ball.
appreciate that as a Roosters fan. Thanks, Greg. If you can make that happen for me.
Yeah, and they're the important things. And I think that you've got to ensure that it's safe out on the field for the players. The game these days, as we said, is highly regulated. It's highly regulated judiciary too, wise. The match review committee pores over every tackle, gets viewed and analysed. And whilst you may get away with things on the field, certainly that doesn't mean that you get away with them once the game's over. But so there's the challenge there, because the grand final is the last game of the season. So you've got to ensure that you control what goes on out there. So your Jareds and your BJ Lewis, who they can play up a bit, they're the ones that you've got to keep an eye on.
100%. BJ Lalua would be definitely not in my periphery, that's for sure.
Let's get more fireworks out there this weekend.
Exactly.
A terrific player, but he does have a short fuse, and that image of him running 3 or 4 metres to drop his knees into a player towards the end of the season, I didn't think did him any justice or the club.
Greg, I mean, obviously they know they've taken the biff out of the game, but what do you make of people being sin-binned for what looks to be a particularly aggressive pinch? They're almost not even slaps, are they? Like a couple of times someone might have had their eyelash grazed and suddenly they find themselves in the sin bin. Is 10 minutes in the bin too big a penalty for plucking someone's eyebrow, I guess is what I'm asking?
Absolutely. I made a comment, and I don't know whether people would have agreed with me, but I didn't think that Sam Burgess should have been charged for pulling his hair. I think that's an example of the referee controlling it on the field. Perhaps if there were other incidents in the game that had drawn Sam Burgess' attention to you, you may well have put him in the bin for that. But to be charged for it afterwards, and that created that furor, with him being charged. And of course, people only see it as him being charged for pulling a hair.
Yeah.
It's not about his record or anything else, which is the true reason why he was suspended.
So for you, Greg, hair pulling is okay?
Yeah, look, I don't... My view is that there are minor incidents that take place that a referee can deal with on the field. A penalty on the field is still part of the referee's armoury,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always need to be a sin bin. And that's why I keep going on about the 5 minutes
Yeah.
sin bin. I think 10 minutes is far too harsh for some of those things that happen.
What if it was...
Certainly if,
Sorry, Greg, what if it was the pulling of pubic hair? Does that change the game a little bit?
That might be slightly different. I probably think that the bunker might have to have a close look at that one.
Maybe not too close a look. That's outrageous, Greg, and I love it.
Tell me, why is touch judging better than refereeing?
Touch judging is not better than refereeing.
Oh, come on. I personally am a touch judge and I love it.
Well, back in my day, everyone started off as a referee.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the journey, you were offered a flag. And if you were offered a flag, it was because those in charge didn't think you could be a first-grade referee. That's how touch judges became touch judges.
Oh, shit. Okay.
A little bit different now. There is a career path where up-and-coming referees do tend to spend some time on the sideline or on the touchline to be part of the learning process of refereeing.
Yeah, but okay, well, let me tell you the right answer. The reason is because the touch judges get to watch the game from the best perspective, but then you don't have to have the horrible pressure of the Telegraph the next day. So you're still part of the process. You're still so close. You're still making decisions. But you don't have to get in trouble.
Well, you could argue how many decisions they actually make now.
Yeah, true.
They don't make too many, and I think that's the part of what I'd like to see change, that the touch judges go back to actually making decisions. And I think the pressure's put on the bunker all the time, when in fact touch judges who are in the best position to see things could make a decision, and that could go towards the referee's decision on the field.
Yeah, right.
Rather than just point upstairs and say we're going to refer it all the time. They don't make too many decisions, touch judges.
Now, can I also ask you a completely bizarre question? Do you remember a Bears player called Adrian Toole? You're allowed to say no.
Yes, I do.
Oh, great. Well, are you aware that
He gate crashed my Cimarol gum card.
I was just about to bring that exact same thing up. Well done. Because it appears that he's getting 10 in the bin in his card. And that's been given by yours truly. So I can't believe that. And your beard, by the way, I'm not sure if you remember this card, but your beard is magnificent in this photo.
It's slightly, well, Gavin Badger's tried to outdo me with that.
Yeah, well, that's true. But he hasn't got there yet.
No, well, mine's a bit shorter and a lot greyer now. So.
But you've still got it, though. That's great that you've
Still got it, yeah.
Have you spoken to him at all about the card? Spoken to Adrian?
You can have a conversation with him about it, yeah. He said, what he argued about was that he shouldn't have been sent to the sin bin anyway.
He's still arguing about it. So years, there's been a photograph, the card's been printed, everything's done. It's someone's chewing the gum, and he's still telling you shouldn't have been. What was it for?
I think he might have back-chatted me at some stage.
Well, that's an excellent reason to bin people, and that should happen more often. In fact, I think that's what Cam Smith got binned for.
No!
Yeah, that's the night that he didn't want to leave the field. He hadn't been sin bin before, so he didn't know how to quite cross the touchline.
Yeah, and he's been sin bin since, which is also great.
For a bit of a slap, yeah.
Do you know him? What's your take on him? Because most of the rugby league community seems to really be funny about Cam Smith, but I'm still trying to work it out. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I share your view. I don't know, because he's such a great player, but he does draw attention to himself on the field. And, to rub his knuckles against the players' ears, I thought was pretty ordinary, and it's almost as though he does it to provoke actions.
And he already knows that we're all looking at him, and he still does that kind of weirdness.
Yeah, but I think that's part of his personality, and he's a great player. To play 400 games and continue to dominate matches. There are matches there where Melbourne Storm look down and out, but Cameron Smith is the player that rallies them around, and they run off the back of him. So there's no doubt he's been one of the great players to play the game, and in a long line of dummy halves or hookers that developed, from Benny Elias through to Steve Walters, Danny Badiris, and Cameron Smith now is that sort of the player that really has dominated the game in that position. One
other thing I was going to ask about that, though, was the whole thing around the stuff that happens off the field, like with his wife getting rings and he's getting crystal trophies, that all seems to just be the NRL possibly misreading how the fans are feeling about him.
Yeah, look, I think there is this view that the fans have that and supporters have of him being perhaps favoured.
Yeah, that might
really
be it.
Difficult. He was given a testimonial.
Yeah.
Along with Jonathan Thurston, and great idea to do, but then other players have been knocked back on testimonials and probably deserve them as equally, if not more, than those two guys. You know.
And John Sutton was given one, and it wasn't televised, or we didn't know anything about it. But those other twos were televised live, and
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and that's the issue. I think it's part of. Sometimes it's all those things that happen that somebody's not really keeping an eye on to say, well, if and Craig Bellamy's an example. He comes out and can't understand why Cameron Smith is treated the way he is by the media and fans in particular. But sometimes there are things happening there that don't sit well with the supporters.
Yeah, mate, I couldn't have you on without asking you about the stripping rule. This has obviously been a major talking point from a referee standpoint this year. I need to know, are you for it or are you against it?
I think it's impossible to rule on. I really think that, to have a rule now that's being completely bastardised by teams, by players dropping off tackles, that's not what rugby league's about. Rugby league is about putting the player to the ground and but not going through this facade of making a tackle and pulling out. I don't know what the answer is. If you criticise something, you should have an answer for it. But I don't know where they go with it because it adds a bit of excitement to the game and a bit of unpredictability. Yeah. But the referees are in a very, very difficult circumstance to try and rule on it.
It seems to me, Greg, that it sort of muddies the water a little bit. It makes it harder to adjudicate on. But as you said, it does mix things up. Is there a chance that just to strike an equal balance, that if someone does successfully strip the ball off someone, that they can't score unless they themselves strip nude?
Well, that might be something to consider, isn't it?
It's bunker replays, though. Oh.
The bunker might have to be banned in that scenario, Greg.
Yeah, they could be. Yeah, they could be.
Mate, look,
certainly no replays.
Definitely no slow-mos. Look, we won't keep you for too much longer, Greg, but we can't have you on without asking you. The grand final's taking place on Sunday. Who do you think is going to win and why?
I think they'll go back-to-back, the Roosters. I think their experience will carry them through from last year. They've got a fit Cooper Cronk. He was unfit last year, but still played a major part in the game. They've got the bulk of their players ready to go. And the Raiders, I still think there's a question mark over their temperament. I think they haven't been put under pressure in recent games in terms of their discipline. I think the Roosters will do that. I think the Raiders will be looking for to make early inroads into the Roosters, and the Roosters' big thing about them this year compared to previous years is their defence. Their defence is super tight now and really difficult to get through, as Melbourne Storm found out.
Yeah,
and I think that's where the Raiders could get frustrated.
It's like the Israeli West Bank at the moment, isn't it? It's unbreachable.
So it's the Roosters for me. I think they're probably a two-try better side than the Raiders at this stage of both teams' development. I think the Raiders have done a great job. 2 years ago, you couldn't pick them to do anything. They were so inconsistent. Along with the Warriors, they were the most inconsistent side, really. But I think they've improved a lot. I think the English players coming over has been fantastic. The opportunity that they've got, and obviously they've done well to get to the grand final. But I think the Roosters are just a little bit experienced and probably a little bit more firepower.
Greg, I love the way you think, and that cheque is coming in the mail, don't you worry, as a proud Roosters fan. Do we have any final questions for Greg before he goes? Look, Greg, thank you so much for coming on, mate. That was some fantastic insights, and especially from a refereeing perspective. We don't often get that perspective, and as you said, sometimes that's a lonely prism to look at the game through. So appreciate your views.
It is, but it's given me a wonderful insight into the game over the years. and it certainly helped me when I was in administration in the UK, understanding how referees think and working with the clubs, because the clubs certainly don't understand how referees think sometimes. So I was sort of trying to get the balance between the two.
Well, mate, hopefully we can do a bit of a post-mortem after the Roosters have a smashing win. So enjoy your time up on the coast, mate, and we'll speak soon. Bye.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
What a lovely bloke.
Good bloke, right? Yeah.
For a referee. No.
Now, as someone who referees Big T, how did you find the insights of Greg McCallum? Do you think he's on track? Obviously, there was an interesting bit of friction between the two of you when it came to touch judging.
Yeah, well, I'm a lot lazier than him. I think that's really what it is. No, I mean, he... what do I think of it? I'm just listening in awe. I'm trying to take in everything he says, because what he's saying is... a lot smarter than anything I can think. So I'm just trying to soak it all in. I hope it didn't ruin that first bit. But I took my headphones off to listen to him stupidly, not realizing of course it's going to come through the headphones.
I did wonder why you did that.
Yeah, and then everyone was telling me put the fucking phone closer to the microphone, and so of course I didn't know that wasn't happening. So thanks, Shirls. You did a great job with that. I hope I didn't ruin the first answer. My question was brilliant, so I hope his answer. Was there.
Shirley, were you as equally as impressed as I was? Big T had brought such a high level of research to those questions. There was a cracker in there about the playing card. And I love the fact that he has what appears to be a photographic memory of his entire career, because he knew exactly who you were talking about.
That is something. Sorry, that was a question to you. Go.
It's right. I'm used to being spoken over in this house.
Yeah, my bad. But not by me. So I'm so sorry.
This is the first for you. No, I've seen you, Aimon, do a little bit of prep. Sometimes it's about 20 minutes worth. I feel like maybe Big T spent his week scouring the internet for anything Greg McCallum related.
Just hoping someone asks me anything. It's been years hoping someone asks me, gives me an opportunity to talk to Greg.
Is this how you prepare to go to parties?
It should be.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing?
I'm not ever invited to parties, but if I ever am, I will do stuff like this.
Every attendee should have a Big T with them, because he has a dossier on every person who's there.
Do you like rugby league? No. Can I ask you some obscure questions about a referee from the 80s and 80s? But I think that happens often. Often when I speak to ex-players or people involved with the game, you say to them, oh, what about this game in 94? Like, I know exactly what you're talking about. How do you...
No idea.
Is that insane? That's just great. I
Because
love that.
Shirley, you live with me, and I barely remember last week a lot of the time.
Yeah, but you do remember ridiculous things from,
male brain.
Yeah.
It's a very selective machine, isn't it?
Now, while we're talking about that, Charles, I have a question for you to get us on track.
Yes.
Go for it.
What's the worst thing you could do to the trophy when you win it? So Melbourne wins it 2020.
Yeah.
You're invited to the after party, Obvi.
Yeah.
You're there with the trophy. You're getting a photo.
Yep.
Cameron Smith's telling you this is my last year, so let's get a photo together. Let's remember it. And you go, no, Cameron, let's do something else.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing you think you could do with it?
So
to that trophy.
On the trophy every year, I haven't looked at the trophy that much because as a Melbourne supporter, it's a fair way away.
And you often got it. So I'll look at it next year. I'll look at it next year.
It's always in Melbourne. But in my head, when you're in primary school and you get your sports team wins the shield and they put those little gold labels with your does that happen to the NRL trophy?
Let's go with yes, because I think
what I would
pivots on
do,
that.
It does. It 100% does. I'd go through and I'd pick all of the other teams winning little badges off, so that it was only the Melbourne ones left.
Wow, and that's, I guess, tantamount to vandalism, isn't it, T? I mean, that's airbrushing history.
And the incredible thing about you suggesting that is that we did it to Melbourne in 07 and 09 when you cheated, and we literally picked off the years that you won it, and you want to do that to everybody else. That makes sense.
But they didn't put the other teams back on, did they?
No.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting question, isn't it? Do you give it to the team that lost, Parramatta, in 09 because they haven't won one since the 80s, or do you go, well, everyone who Melbourne beat on the way should have also been up there, so do they beat Parramatta? Yeah, it's a lesson
to learn.
Personally, I think that those missing years should be posthumously dedicated to the Newtown Jets.
Why?
Because they were unfairly kicked out of the competition.
No.
And as we can see in the inner west, Blue Bags merch is extremely ubiquitous. It's fucking everywhere. You can't get away from it.
They won the grand final last weekend.
They've won the New South Wales Grand Final.
Great job
Bang,
knowing
bang,
that.
bang. That's
Yes.
amazing knowledge. And they're taking on the Burleigh Bears on Grand Final day.
Your pre-sex trivia is working. The fact that she knows the Jets one.
It's the best way for it to sink in.
And the best thing about me saying that is you can't edit out the bit that she said before or something. Won't work. Nailed it.
It has to go into the final cut, unfortunately. But no, I mean, that is actually a very good recall. But I just think that for a club that was so close for so long and they had a lot of tumultuous times, it might be nice to, because obviously Melbourne Storm ruined it for 2 years, effectively.
We're not the only people who have ruined it. It's just that we happen to be the only...
Roosters, get ready for
Yeah,
your...
thank you. And I actually think that we would have won them anyway.
Well, that's what Cameron Smith and Billy Slater like to say. And this is the thing that I think sticks in people's throat the most, is the fact that not only have these premierships been stripped from them, rightfully, because they cheated, but they all go around celebrating as if they've still got it.
Yeah.
And that's what people hate.
That kills me.
To
Yeah.
be fair, they did win the grand final game.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, they won it, sure.
Yeah.
But in the same way that I could win a game of scissors, paper, rock and I don't let you play, I just do it with my hands and I tell you that was you. I mean,
To
I
be
could
fair,
cheat
that,
and win.
that is what it's like to play Parramatta these days.
Okay. Do you have what's the worst thing you would do to a
Oh,
trophy?
gosh. I didn't have anything prepared necessarily. But I guess the reason I thought that came to mind is I think there has been some stories where the Premiership Trophy has almost met with foul play. And I know when I spoke to Robbie O'Davis, he told me that in the Newcastle Great Celebration in 1997, that when Paul Harrigan held it aloft in front of a crowd of hundreds of thousands, well, I'm probably exaggerating, but a lot of people, that he very nearly dropped it from a great height. And it would have been a very different headline that day had Paul Harrigan inadvertently crushed several fans. And so that strikes me, T, as a bad thing to do with the trophy.
In Newcastle.
Kill your fans. Well, yeah, it's probably par for the course.
Yeah, well,
but
Well,
still.
I just think there's so many fans in Newcastle, there have been a lot of deaths. I'm slowly making a way to a very bad joke about how you have no fans and if they did it in his and so blah, blah, blah.
You've ambled your way into a rooster jab.
Well, I didn't like it. It's such an easy joke.
Don't the Roosters have some crazy, and this is, like, I could be very wrong, and maybe this trivia stat didn't quite stick the way you wanted it to.
Okay.
Ew.
Don't-
Stick as well. Sorry. It's still in the bedroom. It's just...
Don't the Roosters have some crazy rate of increase in fans? Or is that not right? Like,
You mean in the last year?
yeah.
I think that our general membership campaign has gone pretty well, but I don't know if it's crazy necessarily. I think we're
Maybe that was just you boasting one
Probably.
day about them being better than everybody else,
that's
like usual.
again more foreplay. But this is how we roll.
Membership's up.
Oh dear, it's closer to the truth than you think. But no, so that's obviously a bad thing. And I think T, you came into some possession of some knowledge on Twitter today.
Yeah.
Something to do with Canberra, is that right?
Yeah, allegedly Mal Meninga dropped it. Oh, Mal Meninga maybe fixed it. Canberra broke it. Is the point. The Raiders broke it.
That's right. Yes.
I think it was Laurie Daly broke it, and then the magic of a towel. In the same way that you might put all your problems under a pile of sheets and then hope that they get better, Canberra wrapped it in a towel, and it seemed to work because
It knitted back together, did it?
so, through the magic of Raiderdom.
Like Norm Proven and Arthur Summons just
Hugged each other
rejoined.
tighter. Yeah.
So was it? Well, am I right there? I thought I saw that it was potentially Laura Daly hanging outside of a car or something. isn't it?
Yeah, but he's drinking with it, surely. I mean, they're saying,
Well, you reckon he was hitting letterboxes with it, like at
Yes.
90 k's an hour?
That's such
It's
a
a
better
Canberra
story.
thing to do.
Yeah, it would be.
Is it?
I just think of Kiefer Sutherland now to Stand By Me. Weird movie reference, but I've been thinking of that with Laurie Daly smashing things with would have been the Winfield Cup.
Does
back
it
then,
happen?
wouldn't
Yeah. Does it happen in that movie? I only know it in Dazed and Confused. where they do it
Oh,
with
I'm
paddles.
sure there are many references, but this one
Are there? Of letterbox hitting?
probably two.
Yeah, and we've nailed them both.
If I'm stretched.
Oh, this podcast is good.
I know. You think you're wandering away with just information about league? Well, we've got a surprise for you.
Now,
But,
I had...
wait, hang on a second.
sorry.
You don't get out of that. What are you doing?
Oh,
to the
great. I was just
trophy?
about to do that. So I have one that was a lame joke, which was the worst thing you could do to the trophy is win it for Brisbane. But then I went up with a more of a voluntary tackle weird vibe. And I went with, if you put it next to your toilet and use it as the thing to work out if your ass is clean after shitting. And do you I'm hoping that you also... You obviously wipe your ass, but then do you have the one that you then nominate as I'm checking you to see if we're done?
Wow. I mean, I think that my process.
I should ask Chester, actually. Chester's going to know a lot more than you.
Well, it's funny, you can merge those two things because occasionally we've been out of toilet paper, but Chester's been there. Yeah, so you've seen a cat that looks white and brown? Well, it didn't start out like that, T. But what I will say is I think that's a great idea, but you'd have to keep it shiny, obviously, so you can see some reflection.
Someone else needs to clean it. But...
Yeah, I'd say so. Could you see that happening in our household?
What I must say is we spoke before about there being a wide berth around me being in the bathroom, and I'm going to stick to that. We're going to keep the wide berth on my bathroom habits.
I like it. The only thing that comes to mind is I think that the worst thing you could probably do with a trophy is to give it to Bryce Cartwright, because the chances are the trophy in time would become quite diseased because we know he's an anti-vaxxer.
Great.
There'd be a chance that at some point Norm Proven's image would have his penis infected and it would eventually drop off.
I didn't know we spoke about anti-vaxxers in this house.
Certainly comes to mind. Another topic that I thought we could touch off on, team. Don't know why I'm calling you a team.
No, I like that.
Yeah,
let's touch off.
Okay, are we ready, gang? It's very odd. But the women's grand final, we've talked about this off air, is actually for the first time this year becoming a curtain raiser for the grand final on Sunday. And it got us to thinking that maybe this will be a new thing. Maybe there are other new things that the NRL haven't investigated yet to have as a curtain raiser to the grand final. What else could we suggest to potentially get the crowds all fired up? Have you got any suggestions?
I would love a bloopers reel.
Oh my God, that's a great idea.
Okay, wait.
Holy shit, that's a great idea. Because highlights are already great.
Yeah, I know. Bloopers reel before
Yes.
the game. All of the crap things that all of the players have done all year.
That's amazing.
I am so annoyed that I'm going second because I just want that to happen.
That's I've talked about legitimately good ideas having no place on this show. How dare you? But that's a great idea.
I do love this, and I got this doubled today. So sometimes I get this double take when I have something clever to say about NRL. Like, oh,
You've shocked yourself.
She knows something. But I get that response from both of you now. Like, I've come up with...
Oh, that wasn't because it was you. I'm just so annoyed that it hasn't happened yet. It seems like now such an obvious thing to be doing. Or before any game. They should all have bloopers before.
Do you think that maybe the Ben Hunt drop
Maybe just that on loop.
could start it off? Like, that's the...
See, I think we need to steer clear. Well, I don't know if the grand final players are watching it, but I just think grand final bloopers might be a bad omen. Also, I'm worried about that bloke's mental health. That moment, allegedly, he laughs a lot now when you'd feel like he's not really laughing.
He's not laughing along with you.
Because he's still thinking about that moment.
Well, it's funny you've put a really downward edge on it because I had other
Thanks,
jokes.
Big T.
No, but that's a serious point that needed to be made. But I will say this. When you said Ben Hunt's drop, I remember thinking straight away, which one? Because obviously he does that fairly routinely in all of his games.
What about Ferguson when he keeps running into people?
When you say running into people...
He's done that a few times when he was playing at fullback.
Oh, you mean running into his own player? Yes.
Was it looking, kept running into... Or the Storm player who played the ball in the wrong direction.
Oh, yeah. These are all absolute
there's
musts.
so much gold out there.
Yep, I love it. And you know what you could do? You could have Benny Hill music playing over the top. Or some kind of circus tune. Or, if you want juxtaposition, something sinister. Depends on what way you take it.
Yeah.
T, what do you see as a bit of a curtain raise? I know you're following a legitimately good suggestion.
Well, I mean, and this is really bad because mine's a short Pixar kind of heartfelt, lovely. You know how you get those 3-minute ones before the actual movie starts, and it might have the characters from other teams that aren't playing. But again, that's just a short movie. I want to end now before the bloopers start, so it's not really going to work. But the other thing is that there's often chat of a mini Olympics or running or some kind of thing that the bottom 8 players should do, and I still love that idea.
I love that.
But I think maybe paintball or something, take them to the next level. And often there's these ridiculous connections between rugby league and war, and so let's put them almost in that.
I love it.
Do we build a coliseum?
Yes, there should be lions. Actually, yeah, some kind of animal.
They've already made that. It's called Bankwest. And that's it. It is virtually tantamount to a modern coliseum. In fact, I challenge Rome to compare its architecture with Parramatta.
And they are close listeners.
Exactly.
But no, you're right. Even just chicken with some kind of eagle. Chicken with an eagle is actually a stupid term. But if you have a bird that's going to fly at you and one of you needs to stop first, it could even be a chicken.
Yeah.
And then just see players from the bottom 8 What are they going to do? I think that could after the bloopers, because everybody still wants them.
Actually, get them on a high and then take them way down.
Yeah.
Get them really dark.
When you say bottom 8, do you mean like the bottom
Tigers.
8 teams?
I want to see the
or
Tigers
do you want
do
the
something.
bottom 8 players? Fan choice, bottom 8 players.
Holy shit. Yeah. Yes, that's what I want. If I know that they're in paintball, I then am voting for people I want to see get shot.
Well, do you know, it's
This
funny
is
what you're saying,
excellent.
because when you mentioned paintball today, I thought, what a great idea. If one of the teams was armed with live ammunition, but no one knew it.
No.
And then suddenly you'd go, wow, there's a lot of red paint going on out there. And that would G me up for the game. But it probably says a lot about me rather than everyone else.
And I haven't read
You're a
Hunger
psychopath.
Games, but is that how it started? That sounds like how
I think it did start at Bank
paintball.
West.
Yeah.
From memory. I'm still a bit rusty on the details, but pretty sure that's it. I think just I loved your idea of having teams outside of the 8, and I remember thinking, well, the Titans, we all know, had a shocker year. As bad as Japan in the mid-40s, frankly. So I thought, what if we finally give them some wins, right, and have them play, I don't know, the Cleverly Crocs under 9s.
Yeah.
You probably have to super their players up a little bit. Ash Taylor would have to try, because otherwise they're going to get done. But that would be a horrible result if they actually got done by the under 9s.
Yeah.
But you see where I'm going.
Cleverly Crocs have been great this year. They're in the league that I referee, so Cleverly's been great. But,
They show more heart than the Titans.
That's right. Also, I'd be very much worried, because I thought you were going with the Titans could win the paintball thing, and I'd be worried that the back end, when they realise they're not going to make the finals, they then start training for the paintball, and then you end up seeing that kind of leak into their game a bit.
Yeah.
They do live in the right part of the country to be training for that kind of
That's
stuff.
right.
Yeah.
Handguns are mandatory. So, you'd probably have a bit of a problem there. Have we got any other ideas that might G up the crowd before we push on to our next little segment? I think we've probably milked that for everything it's worth.
I think if we keep going past bloopers, we're idiots.
Exactly.
Shirley won that section.
No, we'll probably just skip forward a little bit here. So, unusual events in grand finals.
Yeah.
So last year we had someone with a broken scapula come and turn up and decide to play. That's quite unusual. And it's happened a few times. Ben Hunt, let's bring it up again, 2015, dropped the ball, which turned out to be the premiership trophy.
Yeah.
What about the Sam Burgess broken jaw?
Yeah, exactly.
Well done.
In what year? Oh, it's
2016?
dead air. It's dead air.
16?
Close. 2014. You were not far away. You were actually in the 2016 grand final.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you lost to the Sharkies.
Sorry, I was in too many of them. I can't remember.
It's hard to keep.
Well done.
So when it comes to the grand final this Sunday, have we got any ideas about what unusual events we would love to see take place on the field?
I'm going to go first because yours is going to be better than mine.
Go for a T.
So first of all, my favourite penalty, which is when you are offside from the kickoff. So they blow the whistle to kick off, they kick off, and they blow the whistle going, you overran it ever so slightly.
Anti-climax.
And the best thing about it is that if you listen closely, every referee always says time your run. So they're constantly reminding them, and they for some reason need to do about rules all the time. And one of them is, even at the kickoff, please don't be offside. And when they are and they blow the whistle, it's so excellent. And then everyone is this slow tide of the entire field having to shift. It's excellent.
A genuine question I need to ask someone who has a referee brain. But should referees be instructing players on how not to break the rules? Because shouldn't that just be instinctive?
It's a question I put to them once during a training session with the NRL, and also that they run on the assumption. The first premise was that they run on the assumption that everyone's constantly trying to cheat. And I said, should we really be assuming that? And they said, oh. Yes.
Have
100%.
you seen the Melbourne Storm?
Yeah,
There's a precedent.
Yeah. And so then the not doing it, and you spend time with small children, and I'm not trying to say that players have the same intellect as small children, but if you say to them small reminders as well, like make sure you put your shoes on before we go. Are your shoes on? Let's have a look at our feet. Shoes aren't on. Come on, let's do that now. That's more likely to get something to happen and just go, remember the rule is shoes on before you go. And so as a referee or touch judge, when you just say things like hands away, they're instinctual people. I think because they're not thinking, they're just doing. When you say small things like hold, go, instead of just assuming that everyone will go when the play of the ball happens, they need all of that constant instruction.
I love it. I think you're right. Now that I think about it, NRL players are very much like toddlers, aren't they? They do need that kind
Views
of...
are our own.
No, I love that idea.
That's the thing that I said, views are my own.
Yeah,
the
out of all
pubic
the
hair
things.
shooting people, I'm more worried about that.
I like where your line is because it's not linear.
No, I wasn't finished. So
No,
fight
please.
between own team members. I would love to see BJ really shit off Croker, and they're on the other sides of the field, and he just goes, "For fuck's sake, it's a grand final. I'm never gonna have another one.
Yeah.
Pull your ass in." And he says, "Make me," and then they slap each other,
Yep.
or pinch each other aggressively, as you pointed out before. And I would love to see that. Actually, maybe not Raiders. Definitely Raiders, because bin-win. If you get someone sin-binned,
Yep.
you would then become more likely to win. So I would love to see the Raiders deliberately fight each other.
As a tactic.
Yes. Someone gets sin-binned.
And can I tell you, the first thing that jumps out at me is the choice of players that you've picked for that scenario. Clearly, Croker is being killed in that scenario. I mean, I think BJ Lalua picks him up and uses him some kind of glorified toothpick. That's the only way I can see it coming, because I think the weight differential, Shirley, is about 180 kilos. Would you like to see...
Freak.
Sorry?
Leilua's a freak.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a massive man. But so they wouldn't get into some kind of mutual melee, is what
No.
I'm saying. It would be assault.
But I can imagine that Croker would come over as a captain, as a facade captain, as we were talking before, and try and say something to him, and that's what kicks off. You're not my captain, and that kind of thing. And the media would love that, because there's such good guy, bad guys there.
They need the narrative.
And Fatty Vorton would be frothing over it. My last one, though, and you're going to hate this one, but if it happens, you're actually in 20 years going to love it. There's a penalty that the Roosters are down 6-8, and if they kick it, we go into golden time. However, sorry, it's the other way around. You're winning 8-6. You kick a penalty to try and push you out even further. I've got the scores all wrong. Can I just read it? Look down. Yes. So if you're up by 6.
Yes.
If you kick this, you're going to be up by 8, which is why you're taking the penalty.
Beyond a converted. Love it.
Latrell lines it up, hits the post, ricochets into the in-goal, and then Canberra score an insane Harlem Globetrotters try that put us then equal into golden point. I don't care who wins, but I just love the idea of you kicking a penalty to win it, and it's actually the thing that puts you in a golden point.
Do you know what's funny? That
The
actually...
theatre.
The theatre of that moment, and the fact that I know of a time in my head where Canberra did that. Not in the grand final, but they were playing Newcastle, I think it was. And they went for a goal, and it missed, and it didn't go dead, and they ran through and scored and won the game.
In a
NRL game. I think it was about
Are we just
3 years ago.
You're giving me trivia on sport, and I'm liking it.
I know.
I'm gonna look that up. That's
I guess because it's so unusual, it's stuck in my head. A bit like some weird Audi beer is stuck in my throat.
I didn't bring this up. You're drinking Aldi beer. I'm drinking the Foster's can signed by Chip Jones.
Shout out Chippy.
Yeah, from some competition that I won from the volunteer table. And I'm also drying my my wet lips with a West Tigers napkin. I couldn't remember what they were. So
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't that great?
And that is just the kind of perks that you can expect when you come
realise.
to the voluntary tackle.
Yep.
You get your Tigers napkins, and occasionally we let you urinate in a cat's toilet,
Classy establishment.
which is what we offer here. Babe, do you have any suggestions for weird things that you want to see occur in a grand final? It can be anything.
I feel like grand finals are weird enough. Like, there's always this weird vibe around it. Maybe that's just because I live with you when you...
Because I go weird.
You go weird. Although maybe the weird thing is that you're calm. Well, excited. Maybe that's the weird thing for us. But... I don't know. And firework in someone's eye wouldn't go straight.
Yeah. That was weird.
What if they ban fireworks? What if they ban the fireworks at the grand final because of Leilua?
Look, to be honest, I think because it was Leilua, everyone enjoyed it. So it'd be actually a reason to then direct the fireworks at him on purpose from here on in, because when it hit him in the eye, and I probably shouldn't be taking so much glee, because he's okay, I can laugh at it.
Weirdest game ever.
If he was blinded in one eye, can I just put a little bit of a preamble here? I wouldn't be laughing about this. But because he's walked away relatively unscathed and he's only very mildly singed part of his retina, I feel like it's fodder for jokes. So what I'm saying is let's direct as many explosives at BJ Lalua as we can. And as a red, white and blue man, I'd endorse that.
Has there ever been a time when there's been so many injuries in a grand final that there hasn't been a full team?
That's
Great
excellent.
question.
Yes. So you'd like to see
Greg.
5-on-4. Yeah.
No,
Greg back
I'm going to
on
go
the
with no.
Or, when you play touch football and if you're winning by too much, they start taking away your players.
The mercy rule.
Is that going to happen?
That's a great
Yeah.
thing that they should do. Well, no, I think they should do that in extra time. Some people keep telling me that's terrible for injuries, which I'm happy to accept. But instead of going to golden point, they go every minute you need to take a player off, and then just a strategy of who you take off.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love that.
Okay, hypothetical here.
Go for it.
If Big T's Raiders and
Oh yes, Big T's
Aimon.
Raiders. Yeah, I've never heard that before, but I like it. Go.
Aimon, your Roosters,
Yes.
you're down to one player each.
Yep.
Fuck, what a
Who
question.
are
You
your
should host
players?
this podcast.
I know, for many reasons. Okay, I love this scenario. This is
Big
good.
League while we do this.
I host the house, Big T. That's enough.
I'm feeling it.
Okay, for me, so you're asking me which player, if it was one-on-one.
Yep.
So I think clearly you're wanting me to say James Tedesco, because that's
I'm
the obvious.
not wanting you to say anything.
No, but I think in my mind, it would probably be Jared Maria-Hargraves. Just because I'd love to see him run the length, and I've never seen it. And if he happened to bump someone off, which he does quite regularly, he would then have to run 95 metres potentially to a very, very slow length of the field try.
Would he? I don't think he would. I think he would bump that person off, run 20 metres, and then wait for him to possibly come back, and then bump him off again, go 20, take a breath, and just keep bumping until
Just 'cause he
he'd
could.
roll the dice. I probably
Yeah. No, you're quite right, T.
And I've let you choose first so that I could choose against the person you
You're
chose.
so tactical.
Yeah. And I'm going to go with Jack Whiten because I think the bloke can tackle, and I think he's also then fast enough to get away from JWH. Do they have to kick off? Like, does Jared have to kick?
These are our rules. But would you, like, this is another interesting...
This
now
is
I
your
feel like
rules. That's why I've asked you.
We're going down a rabbit hole here. Now that you know the Big T's chosen Jack Whiten, are you changing your man?
Well, say I've already locked it in. Say it's
Locked
like,
it in.
winning the
But you
toss
can
in cricket.
interchange. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But during a play the ball, because you've got to do it live. That's the other great thing. We can't stop the clock.
No, 100%. Oh, look, I like this idea with a slight twist.
Okay.
Okay, and I love a good twist. So it's current players with one sub, but your sub has to be someone who played for your team before 1960. So
They're all dead, aren't they?
well, let's not be ageist. Maybe there's some still kicking, but the reality is you are wheeling someone, probably quite literally, onto the field to maybe win a grand final for you. And I love the idea of someone at the age of a geriatric trying to score an intercept, for example.
And also the fact that they would know you've been selected. So all of them, every game would be sitting there going, shit, I might have to go on. and it's getting closer and closer. And Jesus Christ, I don't think I can do this. Their families around them saying their last words in case they die out there.
That's a big moment in a 90-year-old's life, isn't it? Wow, they're going to wheel me on.
I can imagine my grandparents doing it, though.
Yeah, you have good genetics, though.
Yeah.
They're quite fit.
I'm wondering, though, would they be that great mentally and fit if they had to have played football during the 50s?
Well, my nan talks all the time about her hockey playing days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then can I enlist your grandmother as the person to go on for the Raiders? Because
She does need something to do these days, so maybe it's a good
done.
What a hobby, playing fullback for the Raiders.
Yeah.
That's
In
excellent.
case of Golden Point. Oh, but Golden Era Point. There's a name in here somewhere. Yeah, that might be it.
We are sitting on a gold mine. For the record, any unusual events that I'd like to see happen during the game, I think we're quite out of character to see Latrell Mitchell give a shit. So that'd be nice. That's what I'm going to put down. And I guess it occurs to me, I do love a good head clash. So maybe a quadruple HIA.
They're so frequent as well at the
The
moment.
HIA is definitely my favourite ref signal.
The tapping on the head.
Yeah.
That is.
Do you know what I'd like to see? The referee rub their stomach at the same time.
I hate
That
your
would be
guts.
impressive.
My dad started recently calling them brain cramps because before that used to go down for a cramp and then the game would stop to wait for that, and now they have to stop all the time for these HIAs.
I feel like that might be downplaying something really quite serious, though.
Oh, but that's what we do on this show. So I'm completely okay with
And
it.
it may have been something my dad said in passing at a pub, and I've now told however many people listen. So I
Sorry,
think it sounded
Dad.
horrible. Yeah.
Well, look, I'm conscious of time, and I want to make sure this isn't a huge extravaganza. So what I wanted to do to finish off the potty was to actually have some predictions. Now, I will say this quite honestly. I'm actually feeling more relaxed going into this grand final than any other. That probably is really misplaced. But for me, I think we do win this game, and I say we win by 13 plus.
Oofed.
You are way too confident.
I probably am. But what do you guys think?
I think that you guys aren't so good at defending the strip, and it's what the Raiders do.
When you say the strip, you mean the goal line?
No, he means-
strip the ball.
Oh, the actual strip, right? Yeah.
I don't know what
that's
you
true.
guys do at the goal line, but like no other teams are stripping.
You've misheard stripe.
Yeah, maybe
I
I thought it was another term for stripe, and I went, oh, maybe I don't know about this.
No, Raiders strip the ball.
That's
and
true.
You guys have not been great at defending
That's
that.
100%
so
accurate.
I see that being your problem, and I don't feel as confident as you are. Maybe I'm just preempting the most depressing week of my life next week, though.
Are you going for the Roosters though?
I have to.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, it's actually, I put it in the terms of our marriage contract.
In we have photos of me in a wedding dress with a Roosters jersey over the top.
In the wedding dress.
In the wedding dress.
Is that here? Can I see it? Is Chester holding onto
We'll,
that?
we'll have to dig that out. Thank goodness this isn't being filmed.
It was the one vow that I've broken.
What, do you take it off? What was the vow?
Oh, I said that when we got married that I'd change teams, but I couldn't.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have been asked. I'll put that on him.
I think I did once. I think what he's like misinterpreted is I said, if you win 3 premierships in a row, I'll consider changing. Thinking that was a ridiculous thing, that would never happen. So, God, like if you win this weekend,
I know.
that's
We're on our
we're
way.
2/3 of the way there.
And can you go back though if Melbourne win 3?
Well, we already have. We just keep winning.
Okay.
That's
I
why
mean
it's so
legitimate
hard to give
ones,
them
ones
up.
you didn't cheat and steal.
Oh, did you mean 3 in a row or
No,
3?
we haven't won 3 in a row. No,
Yeah.
not silly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't. In my guts, I don't feel myself changing.
Yeah, no, I'm
as
with you.
much as Aimon wants me to.
Do you have a score prediction for the GF?
I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be like 1 or 2 points in it.
Gotta hope so.
And I think that you are going to be incredibly uncomfortable, and I'll be on the other side of the room because that's the only way that we can watch football together.
Described most Roosters matches. T, now I know you strike me as an underdog man. I'm imagining you're on the Green Machine wagon, but not to preempt you, how do you see the game going?
I see you winning probably pretty well, unfortunately. And
Are you saying that because you're in my house?
No.
And you're trying to be nice?
I'm trying really hard to think about what I really think is going to happen because I've been really enjoying this week just reading all the great narratives around it. Cooper Cronk becoming, arguably better than Darren Lockyer and Jonathan Thurston, and anyone who said that they were going to become immortals before him. I think now, particularly if they win, he's going to skyrocket past a whole bunch of people. Definitely a Hall of Fame person. So I love the narrative around him. I love James Tedesco too much, and so I really want him to be successful. But the Raiders, 25-year, blah blah blah. They've got such lovely and excited fans. It would be so heartbreaking for them. I do though love being around when dynasties happen. So I don't particularly love NBA, but I loved seeing that like a player like LeBron James could just make something happen for a team for a long period of time. So I kind of love the idea that the Roosters can just be that thing that happens at the moment. I think you're
just hoping for a good match, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, literally, as stupid as that sounds, I really am. I'm petrified that the first half is going to decide what happens for the rest of the game, and then we don't have a second half. So my prediction is, unfortunately, close by the halftime, and some arsey, crazy fluke, amazing try by Canberra early in the second half, and then Roosters put on 2 pretty emphatic ones. Clive Churchill goes to Boyd Cordner.
Ooh, that's what we should do. We should do some Clive Churchill predictions. So Boyd Cordner's a good one because I think he would be in the mix for someone that could earn it. I've got my theory on that. I think Cooper Cronk could be a shot because obviously it's his last game ever. There's a bit of sentimentality there.
Yeah, they love emotion.
Yep.
Yeah, like when they gave Billy Slater the one for Origin. That he didn't
Yeah, the one he
deserve.
didn't even play in. That was amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm against that. So I don't think that Cooper Cronk should get it just because it's his last game.
No.
But he's got nothing to play for after this game. So he should be at 130%.
I hope for your sake, because it would definitely make it better for the Roosters and they might have a chance of winning better. I hope that Latrell pulls his finger out.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Like, actually, maybe this is what he needs. I don't know. I mean, I would have dropped him because he's been shit. But maybe holding out hope. I mean, the underdog of the big dog?
Yeah.
I don't know how that one works. But, like, maybe.
Yeah.
Just maybe. I
Here's
mean, your mum has a big fat crush on him.
Yeah, that is
It'd be the best thing for her.
We're finding out way too much about my private life at the
Sorry,
moment.
babe.
No, it's good. I enjoy it.
Let,
Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Interesting fact: no winger has ever won it, and I would love to see Brett Morris.
Brett Morris,
win it
BMOS.
because he's been in a bunch of grand finals. I think he's one of the. I think he did one with Canterbury or something like that, or St George, maybe in 2010.
Yes,
I know they won it. St George won it in 2010, but I don't know if he was there. Anyway, it would be great because I don't think his career was going particularly well. You guys have picked him up and like you do with lots of people, turn him to an even better player. And for a winger to win it, and then him and his incredible family to get it would be great. Gamble responsibly.
Wow. I mean, he must be hundreds because, as you said, wingers just in general don't seem to get the accolades. Yeah. But it is possible.
All four of them are great.
Yeah.
Kotrick's great. And
it is actually, it's a game full of great wingers. If as you said, gamble responsibly. But if you were going to sort of treat it like a horse race, maybe sling a couple of dollars on all four of them.
Tupu's a great one.
Yeah, Tupou. He could score a hat-trick and snag it. Yeah. It's possible.
do
Guys,
we have any... You're scoring hat-tricks.
I know. That's what happens when you support the Roosters. Yeah. These things just become a reality. Yeah. Do you have any closing remarks before we sign off?
This was fantastic. I can't wait to use the other bathroom because Chester's
please do.
shitty at me, but this was great.
Big T, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, mate, and hopefully we can do this again because this worked as far as I'm concerned. It's a very good dynamic.
I think I was the glue.
You were the glue.
Definitely.
You're always the glue and the mortar, and I am the misplaced brick that eventually brings the whole house down in that metaphor.
The worrying thing is that you had the best questions and the best answers.
I know.
That's not the glue, you're the...
Zero preparation. Yeah. Beat my 1%. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed our madness. Until next time, just do what Greg McCallum would do and officially blow time on before he has sex with his wife. See you next time. Very quickly, because I'm a fairly selfish individual, what I tend to do each podcast is completely forget people to thank, which is, I guess, down to my inherently selfish traits. But that's something I want to rectify really quickly and shoehorn it into the end of the show, which is why I want to put a big shout out for the Legends of League tournament that's happening pretty soon. That's one of Robbie O'Davis's brainchilds, I believe, being played at McDonald's Jones Stadium on the 16th of November. For more information there, just go to www.legendsofleague.com.au. Another individual I'd love to shout out is Andrew Ferguson of Rugby League Project fame. It's a fantastic resource for anyone that needs to access rugby league related information. So to keep this amazing resource going, I believe Andrew has a Patreon, so you can get involved with that. And if you want to contact him directly, I know he's on Twitter at AndrewRLP. Another quick shout out, Media Watch Mario. Very sorry, mate. I completely forgot to answer one of your questions, and you were very nearly going to be on our show had you not had to go and catch that blue whale down at Botany Bay. Unusual excuse. I would have preferred you to said you were washing your hair, but whatever. Big shout out to you, mate, and thanks for always supporting the show. And last, but certainly not least, I'd love to thank the person who came up with the Smith's Chips Gobbledoc. You, sir, are a fucking visionary. And anyone else who wants to check out that unusual marketing ad campaign, you can find that on YouTube. Just put in Smith Chips Gobbledoc ad 1987. Thank you.